Welcome to the Philos Project podcast. I'm your host, Dominique, and today we're speaking with the Vital family. When the Philos Leadership Institute was on the ground in Israel, we met with the parents, Jacqui and Yaron Vital, who shared the life and memory of their daughter, Adi Vital-Kaploun, who was brutally murdered and unfairly murdered on October 7th during the Hamas attacks. Adi was married to the love of her life, Anani, with whom she shared 2 young boys. On October 7th, she saved the lives of her 2 boys and her father, Yaron, who we will hear from, who was visiting his daughter and grandsons at Kibbutz Holit the day of the attacks. Adi was an incredible young woman, a leader. And on October 7th, herself and other members of her kibbutz were targeted by Hamas militants. The story you're about to hear is one of grief and sorrow. Her father, Yaron, is going to speak to the betrayal the kibbutz felt by their Palestinian neighbors who helped identify where each family lived within the kibbutz so that Hamas terrorists could target each family. Her mother, Jacqui, is going to speak to her life and her memory. We're going to share a video of Adi showing a reporter around Kibbutz Holit, where a large group of young Israelis decided to reinvigorate the kibbutz and create a peaceful community along the border. Yaron is going to testify to his own experience on October 7th. And the grandparents are going to share how her young sons are doing. The 2 boys were taken into Gaza and were released by Hamas the same day. The video footage of the release was later used by Hamas terrorists as propaganda. Their story is deeply moving. And again, these are 2 parents still in the midst of grieving and processing the loss of their daughter. The parents also rejoice that miraculously 9 out of their 10 family members survived the October 7th attacks. This is their story. Well, Jacqui and Yaron Vital, thank you for joining us on the Philos Project podcast to share about the life of your beautiful daughter, Adi, who was a victim of October 7th. And many of our audience probably saw her story in the news. She saved the lives of her 2 beautiful sons and also you, Yaron. So we're very grateful to have you here to hear her story and also to hear both of your stories and what Israel means for you. So before we get into what happened on October 7th and Adi's beautiful life, if you could just share your stories, how you individually came to Israel, made Aliyah, and a little bit about your family.
Okay, I'll start. Hi, my name is Jacqui Vital. I was born in Ottawa, Canada. I lived there for 18 years, moved to Toronto, and when I finished university, I made Aliyah in 1976. So I've been here a very long time. I married Yaron. He's a Sabra. He was born here in Israel. We got married in 1980. We have 4 children. Adi was number 3, and we have 8 grandchildren. Adi, before I tell you about Adi, I want to show you a clip that speaks for itself, because once you see it, you'll understand who Adi was.
לו היינו מגיעים לביקור בקיבוץ חולית 2 קודם, הכל היה נראה אחרת לגמרי. הקיבוץ שממוקם בפתחת שלום היה במצב אנוש. תושבים רבים נטשו, הקופה הלכה והתרוקנה. ואז הם הגיעו, 10 צעירים שכינו את עצמם גרעין שותפים והפכו את כל התמונה. ענני קפלון בן ה-24 הוא אחד מהם. הוא גדל בכלל בירושלים, עירוני למהדרין, בוגר מכינה. הבוקר אנחנו פוגשים אותו במטע הלימונים שאותו הוא מנהל. אז מה מביא בחור בן 24 להיות מנהל מטע?
זה מתחיל בזה שאני לא אגור בעיר. טבע, חי, צומח, זה משהו שתמיד דיבר אליי וזרם. זה עושה לי טוב, ממש. לגעת באדמה, פשוט להיות שם.
שלום. היי, אני אורלי.
שלום, אני עדי, מה שלומך?
חמים פה.
חמים ונעים.
אחת ממקימות הגרעין היא עדי קפלון, בת 23, שהגיעה לחולית עוד כשהייתה חיילת, והספיקה מאז להתחתן עם ענני, שפגשנו במטע הלימונים. אני רואה כאן לימונים בכל מקום, בכל זאת בעלך הוא בוס במטה.
לימונים בלי סוף, ויש פה עוד מיליון פירות וירקות בלי סוף.
כן.
יש פה את החדר שינה שלנו, שגם מיטה שענני בנה, שזה גם אבזור.
זה קיבוץ עם הכי הרבה ספרי קודש שראיתי.
אני לוקחת ערכים מהיהדות, והם מאוד נוכחים בי במחשבה, חלקם יותר גם בפרקטיקה, אבל אנחנו מכירים את השפה הזו, אנחנו מדברים אותה אולי בדיאלקטיקה קצת אחרת.
כן.
אז בגלל גם שאנחנו גרים באזור הזה שיכול להיות טיפה מסוכן, אז יש גם ממ"ד. אני עושה את הפסח הזה. נראה לי זה...
עוד בטרם מצאו את ביתם בחולית, מקימי הגרעין כבר ידעו לנסח את החזון.
מי אנחנו? קבוצה ישראלית ציונית צעירה, מעורבת של דתיים וחילונים ששואפת לחיות חיי שותפות, נתינה, יצירה, לימוד וחיבור לאדמת ארץ ישראל.
זה מרגש אתכם קצת?
אותי ממש.
כן, זה מחזיר קצת כזה את ההתרגשות של ההתחלה
מלבד הרצון להקים קהילה, מסתתרת מאחורי החבורה אידיאולוגיה ברורה, ורק מי שמאמין בה יכול להיות שותף. מאיפה בא לכם הרעיון להקים גרעין?
הפנטזיות האלה.
כשהיינו עדיין בצבא, אז זה המשיך לקבל צורה בצורה של מפגשים ולחשוב ולגבש ולחדד את מה בדיוק אנחנו רוצים, כי גם קצת התבגרנו והבנו מה זה באמת אומר להקים קהילה, את החלק הפרקטי של זה, של אם אנחנו באמת רוצים, איפה אנחנו רוצים לגור, מה אנחנו רוצים לעשות עם זה.
כאילו הרבה חבר'ה בגילכם, יוצאים לתל אביב, לברים, הולכים לסרטים, חיים כאילו חיים של חבר'ה צעירים. אתם לא מרגישים שבאיזשהו אופן התבגרתם מהר מדי?
אנחנו עושים את כל מה שאמרת, פשוט פעמיים בשבוע. דברים גדולים ביחד. מי שבא לפה, הוא בא לפה להיות שותף. גם הסלוגן עכשיו של הקיבוץ זה כזה, קיבוץ חולית מחפש שותפים. אנחנו מחפשים מישהו שירצה לקחת פה חלק בתנופה.
חדשים.
מלא ילדים, מלא ילדים.
3 שנים עברו מאז שניסחו עדי, אביעד ושאר חברי גרעין שותפים את המסמך האוטופי, ואולי אפילו נאיבי הזה. היום הם גאים שהצליחו לממש לפחות חלק מהחזון.
עוד נצליח לממש עוד כמה דברים, לא יודעת אם את הכל, אבל כמה דברים עוד יקרו.
אנחנו ממשים את הרוב. וחלק גדול מהיעדים האלה מראש נבנו כיעדים שנועדו לחיים בשלב היותר מתקדם של משפחות. זאת אומרת, יש פה שאיפה לצורת חיים. זה קטע. כאילו, כי לא הסתכלנו על זה כל כך הרבה זמן, אבל איפה שזה פשוט היה שם.
I could say lots of things about Adi. She was a superstar. She excelled at everything she did from when she was really little. She was always very centered, very focused, very stubborn, very determined. Everything has to be done in its own time, on a D time. When she said it's, and she made sure that she got the job done, but there was no rushing into it. There was no coaxing. And she did manage everything. She was multi-talented. She was an athlete. She danced in a performing dance group. She played basketball for years, especially during high school. She ran track on her high school team, and she actually won the Athlete of the Year award when she graduated. She was the only person in our family at the time who had an interest and made sure that she wanted to learn how to play an instrument, and she chose to learn saxophone. And she played saxophone from grade 5 through grade 12, like through high school, till she went into the army. She played saxophone. She was a quiet leader in her own way. She never made waves, but she always knew how to pull all kinds of people together, even people that normally you wouldn't think could be together. She had her way with all kinds. She understood people, and people loved that about her. And she was very very, very, very modest. Um, she would never tell you about all the wonderful achievements that she did. So we always had to find out sort of backhand. She would never tell us. It was always a secret, or just right at the last minute. Um, yeah, it's just her quiet demeanor. Um, she she was chosen many times at school to be uh, a spokesperson for various groups. Uh, I think I would say her first mission, her first job, if you want to call it that, was when she was in grade 6, and there was the second Intifada in Israel when they were firing on Gilo, the neighborhood where we live in Jerusalem, and she was in grade 6, and she was the only English speaker in her class. So busloads of missions of people, solidarity missions, would come to the school because they wanted to hear what it was like for a child to live through the Intifada, and she did the job very well. She always was like, people were always impressed. How come she knew how to speak English? And she would always say, because my mother's Canadian. That was the answer. That doesn't mean anything, but it did for her. Uh, and that year she was chosen to be part of a program. There was a program, a bar bat mitzvah program for this community, for Gilo, the neighborhood where we live in. So from each grade 6 class, they chose one candidate, and she was sent on a program to Belgium to meet Belgian kids that age. She was sent from the Jewish Agency to a summer camp in New York in the summer after grade 8. Um, in grade 10, she was on a summer program also with American and Israeli teens. That was a mixture of from secular all the way through religious kids, and they spent 6 weeks touring and learning together. But that was also the summer of the Second Lebanese War, and so the week that they were supposed to be up north got canceled, and so they had to spend more time down south. And maybe that's when she fell in love with the South. Who knows? I don't know. But that's,
About her love for the South, because I know that that was a big part of her story and her life on the kibbutz.
well, I think it was, first of all, it was a part of Anani's life because he was part of this group of about 10 guys after the army who decided that they wanted to be partners in um, not rebuilding Kibbutz Holit, but breathing new life into the kibbutz because it was almost on the brink of falling apart, and they needed some younger blood. And so these 10 guys um, decided to move there and yeah, and revive it. And they did. They really did. And Adi got to go along for the ride because she was already with Anani. I mean, they met when she was 16 and he was 17. So they were always together, and that was just a part of where they were going. Like he went there, so she followed. And he was a farmer. He loved, I mean, that's not how he grew up, but he does love the land of Israel, and he worked the land of Israel with his hands. He was in charge of all the produce that they grew on the kibbutz. Adi um, lived on the kibbutz, but she studied at Ben Gurion University, so she would travel every day uh, to Beersheba for her undergrad, and then she would drive to Stable Care. It was about an hour ride each way um, for her master's. And she worked in cybersecurity. Uh, part of this was over COVID too. So all the COVID years, she could work from home as long as you had a computer. You could work from home. So she managed to do that. But she was very involved in the social life of the kibbutz. She was on the committee that decided who would welcome new people who were candidates for moving to Holit. So she was part of that committee that decided who in the end were suitable candidates or not. And she told me on more than one occasion that that was not something that she really, it was hard for her to tell someone that no, you don't belong here, because they were always looking for fresh blood. But she just said sometimes people didn't fit in. To tell a family that had lived there for a year, because the first year is always a trial for both sides, and then you have to tell them no, not for you. Um, and she and Anani hosted most Friday nights, Shabbat dinner. They would have 20 people sitting in the backyard. I mean, it was quite often, potluck and whatever, but they would host it. They were very social animals. Um, uh, Again, Adi in a very quiet way. She had a lot of, we learned a lot of things about Adi since her death that we didn't know before. She's kind of mysterious.
She's a treasure. Would you mind reading for us, Jacqui, the poem that I think beautifully encapsulates who Adi was? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I need my glasses. It's entitled Jewel. This is Adi Kaploun Vital. I've wanted to write about Adi since I learned of her death, but I was afraid it might be presumptuous of me. How could I pay tribute to her life or capture the magnitude of her loss? And yet, I felt compelled to try. From the Israeli media, I learned that Adi lived in Kibbutz Holit near the Gaza border with her husband Anani and two sons, Negev, who at the time was 3 years and 9 months, and Eshel, who was 1 day short of 6 months. Early on the morning of October 7th, 2023, when missiles rained down on the communities in the Gaza envelope, Adi grabbed her sons and took shelter in their security room. They had 7 seconds to get into their security room. At some point, probably from the sounds of shooting and screaming outside her house, she must have understood this was not a usual air raid. With a presence of mind and fortitude I cannot even fathom, she called Anani, who happened to be away from the kibbutz that morning, and asked him to give her a refresher on how to load their rifle. She said she'd speak to him again once it was all over. Anani was not at home. He'd gone out at 4:30 in the morning with about 30 people from the kibbutz on their monthly sunrise hike. So they were in the fields. Um, they were there to have this hike and then have breakfast, and then the plan was to come back to the kibbutz, but they also got caught at 6:30 a.m. when all the missiles started being shot from Gaza, and he managed to hide those people. He was part of the security squad of the kibbutz, and so he knew how to move the people from place to place. He just kept trying to hide them from the terrorists, and I must say he succeeded. All 30 of those people are alive today. And when the army did, in fact, come and rescue them, they took them to Kibbutz Nirim, and they were there for, again, many hours until it was safe to leave Nirim, and then they were taken to another safer place, which is where boys ended up later that night. Adi had access to a rifle for that same reason. Because Anani was part of the security squad, in the safe in their house, they had an M16 rifle, and that's why she called him and asked him how to use it. When Hamas terrorists entered Adi's home, she fired, killing one terrorist, but ultimately succumbing to the gunfire of the others before Negev and Eshel's eyes. The terrorists then took the boys along with Adi's neighbor Avital and headed in the direction of Gaza. I don't know if you remember, but I sure do. I was in Canada when this happened, and on Monday night, October the 9th, Anderson Cooper on television on CNN interviewed Avital and actually showed footage that Al Jazeera took of Negev, the 4-year-old, standing on the border by himself, sort of on one foot, because he'd been shot in the other foot, standing there alone. And then you see this woman coming from a distance, a woman in blue, walking towards him, and then bending down, talking to him. And then in the end, they walk away into like a cowboy movie, into the sunset. Not true. Not true. The Al Jazeera was saying that how humane they were, and look at how nice they are. They let the the mother come and get her son and release them. I was on Anderson Cooper the following week with one of my other daughters, um, to disclaim that, uh, to tell the world that no, that was not the mother. They shot Adi, and that it was the neighbor. So that lots of false news out there.
Yeah. And did you immediately recognize your grandson when you saw it on the TV? And
I knew the story already because it happened on Saturday, and I knew already on Saturday night that they had returned. So I knew that that was true, but who knew that someone took a film of it? And there it was on TV in front of the world. I mean, I was sitting at the kitchen table, and we started watching this. We didn't know what was going to be on. And I said, that's negative. I mean, my grandmother doesn't recognize her grandson. Yeah, kind of freaky. For some incomprehensible reason, they may have been staging a propaganda or publicity stunt. The terrorists let Adi Vital and the boys go after crossing the border. They did cross the border. They were near Rafiah. They were near a tunnel, and that's when they were let go. Though Negev had a shrapnel injury to his leg, and Eshel had difficulty breathing from smoke inhalation, Adi Vital shepherded them to safety. The story of Adi's actions under extreme duress give me insight into how quick-thinking and courageous she was, but they don't sum up her life. I learned from the eulogies at the funeral and stories I overheard at the Shiva that Adi attended the Masorti High School in Jerusalem, served in the elite intelligence unit in the army, received a master's degree in chemical engineering from Ben Gurion University, I must admit with honors, worked in cybersecurity, danced, played the saxophone, played basketball, and excelled at everything she did. But again, this list of achievements does not encapsulate who Adi was. Nor does the following list of adjectives that many use to describe her: smart, serious, self-disciplined, talented, quiet, modest, sensitive, gentle, strong, independent, non-judgmental, accepting of others. I spoke to Adi's younger brother Asaf. He told me that Adi's friends said she reminded them of Carole King, that she loved music of all kinds, that she didn't drink and eat at the same time, that she and Anani were high school sweethearts, that she had a dog, a German Shepherd mix named Pete, whom she loved and called Pita, that she had an endearing way of using old-fashioned expressions like opalala, that she made her own granola. Adi's friend Dana told me that Adi loved to run, and ran on the road that encircled the kibbutz, that she knew she'd marry Anani when he traveled 3.5 hours each way from his army base to visit her for 2 hours in her pre-army academy. That when she found out she was pregnant with Negev, she was afraid that she might be a bad mother, but was, as it turned out, an exceptionally devoted one. That she loved the quiet desert landscape. She always said that she lived 97% of the time in paradise, and 3% not so much. Dana described her as a ma'ayan, a spring of water, quiet and deep, with hidden and surprising corners. When I asked Dana if there was anything in particular that lingered in her memories of Adi, she said, her eyes, their loving, joyful expression. I searched for more descriptions of Adi, scrolling through the Facebook pages of her family and friends. I contemplated calling her husband Anani and her sisters Ayala and Liat. But at some point I stopped. I understood I couldn't capture Adi in 5 or even 700 words. I couldn't even capture one of her hidden, surprising corners. All I can hope to convey is that Adi was extraordinary, that her life was full and rich and bursting with promise, that she was precious, like her name, which means jewel, that she loved and was loved, and that her death has left a gaping hole in the hearts of everyone who knew her.
That's beautiful. And that was who wrote the poem, just for some context, too? Is this
A family friend.
a family friend? Okay. Yeah, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. Well, to shift as well just to what happened on that day. Jacqui, you were not in Israel. So where were you on October 7th when you found out the attacks happened?
I was in Ottawa, Canada, that day, and I actually think that it was probably like midnight, October 6th in Canada. So it was 7 in the morning in Israel. And I woke up, it was before I was going to sleep, but on my phone, I saw a red alert. And I didn't understand why. I have the app for a red alert. And I didn't understand why, so I called Yaron. And it was actually a WhatsApp video. So I called him and I said, what's going on? Why am I seeing this? And he told me that he woke up to missiles, the sound of missiles overhead. But that was pretty much all that he could tell me because this was just the beginning. And because he was in the safe room and it's cement walls, the sound wasn't good. So I said to him, okay, I'm going to hang up and we'll just audio message. So I only have 2 messages on my phone that I spoke to him, and he said, I shouldn't really be talking loud because in case there's terrorists outside, they shouldn't hear me speaking. So we only had 2 short conversations, and that was the end. I didn't hear from them for hours, from him, and I didn't hear from anyone else in my family. I know at some point I wrote to Adi, and she didn't answer. I have it on my phone. She didn't answer, so it was probably already after she'd been murdered. Um, I know now that they didn't want me to know what was happening. That's why there was no communication. I think that maybe one of my friends was writing me that she was in touch with them, but I didn't speak to any of my family members. I really didn't have, I didn't know that they were in danger. Let's put it that way. Uh, because of what Yaron told me, I also have an app on the phone for Israeli TV. So I turned on the TV to see the news. And at that point, they were just showing Be'eri and the Nova Party, all the chaos that was going on, the motorcycles and some of the kidnapping and the fires that they were burning. Uh, they were burning people. They were burning homes. So you saw all that chaos going on. But I also know now that Israelis said that at the beginning, nobody really understood how widespread it was. So I remember saying to my family, something bad, it was definitely bad, something bad is happening in Israel, and it's near where the girls live, because another daughter of ours lived on Kibbutz Kisufim, which is also on the Gaza Strip. I said, it's near where they live, but I didn't know that it was affecting them as well, all this. Um, so for hours, I had no information. I had no one to talk to. Um, I didn't know that there was a reason to even be worried. That was the thing. I didn't know that I should be worried. And it wasn't until 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I mean, I know where I was when Yaron called me and he said, we can't find a D. And we can't find a D and we can't find the kids. So that's why the immediate thought was that they had been kidnapped, because we knew at that point that that's what they were doing, amongst other things, uh, kidnapping people. If they didn't kill them, then they were kidnapping them. So that's what we assumed had happened, and I immediately called. I had received earlier in the day an email from the Canadian embassy in Tel Aviv, because I'm registered as a Canadian living here, like an emergency message saying, if you're in danger, please call this number. So I I did call that number, even though I was in Ottawa, and I said, my daughter's been, and Adi was a Canadian citizen, so I called and I said, my daughter's been kidnapped with her children. And of course they said, how do you know? And I said, because they can't find her. So within a few hours, an RCMP officer, sort of like your FBI, called me to get some details. And then the next day they came to see me. But the Canadian government at that point already knew about Adi. The first day or so, there was only talk at that point of 3 Canadians that were missing. In the end, I think there were 8 that were murdered. And some of them are still their bodies are still being held hostage in Gaza. So I just spent 3 days in Canada not knowing, like everyone else, not knowing where Adi was. The boys had been returned later that day, so I knew that they were safe. But it wasn't until Tuesday afternoon, Eastern Standard Time, that Yaron called and told me that the IDF had gone in a second time. Because on the Saturday, when they tried to clear out all the terrorists from the kibbutz, they did whatever they did. But 3 days later, they went back to make sure that there were still no terrorists hiding in homes, and that's when they found Adi's body. She was there the whole time. They shot her in the safe room, and she was buried under all the chaos that they made, and they also booby trapped her body. But Yaron will explain that to you a little bit more. So at that point, once I knew that they found her, then it was how to get back to Israel, because that first week, everybody, a lot of Israelis wanted to get back to Israel and to fight in the war. And I actually spoke with the Israeli ambassador that same day, and he told me, you won't make it tonight, but try and get on a flight tomorrow from New York. At that point, there were only flights from JFK going to Israel. And I managed to get on one very late Wednesday night. Well, it was actually Thursday morning. Then I got on a flight to Israel. So I was back in Israel by Thursday night. And the funeral was Sunday morning.
And Yaron, you were at the kibbutz and you have a firsthand testimony to what happened on October 7th. If you could share with us.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. As Jackie said, she was in Canada, and Adi really didn't want me to be by myself at the Chag, the holiday. So she invited me to be with her at the kibbutz. She also told me that she's gonna invite our daughter Ayala that just moved to kibbutz Kisufim, and we did spend a Friday night together, play with the kids, have a nice supper together, and then we separate. Ayala went back to Kisufim, and Adi told me that I should, if I want to have a good sleep at night without the kids waking up in the middle of the night, because Eshel, the baby, was 6 months old and he was still nursing. And the house is not so big, and so she gave me a guest house to stay. So I went to the guest house and I stayed there. It wasn't a big house. There is a safe room and another room. So I stay in the safe room. And not that I know that something will happen, but it was the most comfortable room. So I stayed there. And the next day, early in the morning, I woke up to a noise. It seems like a thunder at the beginning. But when I walked out and I walked away from the house to the outside, I saw all the missiles in the sky. It was, kind of dawn, so you could see it pretty bright, and the sky was like full of missile, you know. We know that they send in once in a while some missile, but this was, you know, hundreds of them, hundreds. And I thought, you know, usually when it's happened, when they do it, they send it to either Tel Aviv, Sderot, or Fakim, 10, 15 minutes, you know, few of them, and then it stops. And you wait for in the safe room another 10 minutes to be sure that there is they don't send another missiles. But this time it doesn't stop, you know, 20 minutes, half an hour, and more than that. And after 40 minutes, I already called Adi before, and I asked if I can come and help her. And she said, please don't you leave this room, stay there until it's going to be finished. And in a way, she saved my life this way. She didn't want me to come over. And in the end, whatever happened that I'm going to tell now, I stay in the house and I'm alive to tell the story. But I don't have any information what's going outside already. The kibbutz member have a WhatsApp group, and they get information from the security SWAT in the kibbutz and other people, you know, that they heard what's going on, and from other kibbutzim they knew about the attack already, but I didn't know anything. So I decided I'm going out of the safe room to see from other room what's going on. And when I walk out the next room, there is a window that facing the fence of the kibbutz. And on that fence, I see a terrorist riding motorcycle like crazy, up and down along the fence, trying to break in. You know, they have equipment, they have knapsack that later on we learned that they have dynamite, grenade, guns, RPG, all the stuff to fight. But we didn't know that the attack is, you know, all over those kibbutzim. I thought it's only because we are very, very close to the border with Gaza. I think the most closer kibbutz, and Kisufim is the other one. It's like only 3 kilometers far away from the border. So I thought the attack is local. But I called right away. I called my friend. He lives in another kibbutz, not far away, 5 kilometers far away from Holit. He is a friend of mine. We used to serve together in the army on that border. So we knew that border and we knew how does it work. And we was waiting for the army, but we didn't know that the terrorists attacked the bases first, very early in the morning, and killed most of the soldiers or kidnapped them, so they couldn't react and save those people at the different kibbutzim. So I told him, you know, we are in a problem. He said, it's not just you, Yaron. We want to tell you it's all over. I know already almost 18 to 20 kibbutzim that are under attack. So I knew this time it's very big. And those terrorists broke into the kibbutz in the south side of the kibbutz, near the neighborhood that very close to the fence. They broke in there and they start to attack. And I want to tell you something, that when army fight with the terrorists later on, so most of the terrorists have a body camera on themselves, and in the knapsack, beside having a weapon and grenade and dynamite, they have maps and name of the people in the kibbutz that they be given by the people that used to work in the different kibbutzim. You know, those kibbutzim really support and try to live in peace with the people of Gaza. And besides, give them work at the kibbutz and help them with money and medicines and toys and food, they betrayed them. They gave all the information, each name, each person, each house, who live where, who have dog, all the details. So that when they came, they found a map that each terrorist or commander of the terrorists was taking, and he told them which house to attack. So the first house in this neighborhood was only one house that was somebody moved there, And he was 92 years Holocaust survival. And he's the first one been shot in the kibbutz. Him and his assistant, 92 years old, Holocaust survival. And so I went back to the safe room, hearing all the noise of the shooting. And this time I just hear shooting. I don't hear the people talk yet. And after a while, I decided I'm going out to hear what's going on. So this time I walk into the bathroom, which facing the path between the building that I'm staying and the building of my daughter that is across from the path, like 5 meter to 6 meter far away. And the end of the path leading to the main road of the kibbutz. So now I can hear from my right side, I can hear the terrorists screaming from that side. So I understand they coming to the neighborhood that I'm staying, and they start to shoot and scream. All the screaming like crazy. And the name of God, Allahu Akbar. And I decide I lower my head below the window just in case some of them will cross. But I wanted to hear what do they do. A few minutes after, I can hear them breaking the door beside me. And there was lots of screaming between the terrorists and the people that was hiding in the apartment. And right away after the screaming, there was shooting, and then quiet for a little bit. And then they broke another door beside me. And again, it's repeated itself. The screaming of the terrorists, yelling at the people inside the house, and the screaming of the people inside. I don't know what did they ask for, mercy, for I don't know. But again, shooting. And that was very close. That was the door beside me. I could hear it. So I ran quickly to the safe room and try to lock the door. The handle is supposed to turn and lock the door. But I'm telling you, I'm in a guest house. Nobody take care about this apartment. The door doesn't lock. So I called my friend at the kibbutz, to talk to somebody. And I told him what's going on. And they say, listen, we are fighting on the fence with the terrorists. They kill already one person at our kibbutz, but the unit, the SWAT unit, is fighting on the fence and trying to stop them. And I told him, we are under attack. So he said, lock yourself in the safe room. And I say, it doesn't lock. So he said, wait, I don't know if it's a joke or something. He said, pray for your life. And I was there. I didn't even hold the handle at that time. I just was waiting for them to break the door. And I don't know, I was waiting for something, either to be kidnapped or I didn't think worse of that, but nothing. And then I hear shooting from the safe room. I hear shooting from another location. So I open the door and I hear that the shooting is on my left side. So I understand that they broke to the apartment and they skipped my apartment. And then that's when I learned later that they have the map and the apartment that my daughter gave me. And that's why she didn't wanted me to leave the apartment. It wasn't on the list. For them, it was empty. So that's why they didn't bother even to look, At that time, I remember I left the suitcase outside. And I was afraid that they could see it from the window, that I left the window open. So I took it right away and threw it in the other room under the bed, that they wouldn't see it. And I ran back to the safe room and waiting, and nothing happened. So I left again. And then I hear the shooting from the building across from me, the building that Adi live. And one by one, they killed 13 people around me, one by one. At 12:30, Adi sent me a message, It was the last message she sent me, that I should lock myself very tight at the safe room because they breaking into the room and they kill people. She already knew by the WhatsApp message that she get. I didn't want to worry her that I cannot lock the door. But I went back to the safe room and she gave me a command to lock the door. So I tried to find a way to lock the door. and I find a rope under the bed, and I tied the handle to the ceiling. There was a sticking bolt there, and I had a chair also. So I shoved the chair under the handle. I tried to lean on the handle, and it seems like it cannot be open, kind of feeling safe. But I know they can blow the door with all because I saw some of them carry RPG, and whoever understand what can RPG can do will know that the door won't stop it. And I'm waiting like that, and I'm by myself. I hardly find a bowl of water. I took it with me. There was no food at the house. Not that you feel hungry or something like that. In a situation like that, you want to just stay alive. So I drank the water very slowly, just in case I have to stay longer. And it really take 11 hours that I was there by myself. And after 11 hours at 5:30 afternoon, somebody break the door at my apartment. I didn't know who is that breaking the door, because my friend told me that some of the terrorists, when they start to fight with the army, try to find hiding places to fight from houses. So I thought it might be that some of the terrorists break into the house, trying to, that they know it's an empty apartment, to try to fight from the house. So I kept quiet. I didn't say anything until those people start to scream, "Is somebody inside? Somebody here?" But I still kept quiet. I didn't answer them. And I was trying very carefully, since I know that those terrorists try to convince people to open the door to the safe room, to hide there too. So I try to listen to the accent, if they have an Arab accent in their Hebrew language. But it seems, after so many times, I had enough. I was already kind of giving up. I say, whatever happen will happen, and I'm going to open the door. So I asked the people outside, "Who are you?" And they say, "This is the Israeli army." And the accent looked like a real Hebrew. So I asked them to move away a little bit away from the door, that I can open the door. And I asked them, "Please don't shoot when I open the door, because I'm a guest here and I'm Israeli as well." So I opened the door, and there was a soldier. I recognized right away, uniform, the weapon, everything. And they asked me, "What do I do here?" And I told them I'm a guest of my daughter. So they say, "Let's go and break into your daughter's house and see what's going on there." So they escort me to the apartment. There was 5 of them. 2 of them protected me, and 3 of them break in the door, jump inside, looking for terrorists, because that was a special unit that looking for a terrorist that was hiding, and fight with them. And they tell me, "You can go in until we find that the apartment is empty from terrorists." And they came after a few minutes, and they told me, few seconds, and they told me, "Listen, you can come, but there is a dead body in the kitchen, and we want you to identify the body." And I want you to know that at that moment, I thought I'm going to see my daughter's bodies there. But when I walk inside, because I didn't know what happened in this apartment, it was a man. And after they check up with other people from the kibbutz, who is it, they know is a terrorist for sure. And he was been shot. And we learned later on that when Adi, as Jackie told you, have a M16 in the house, in the safe room, when they wanted to break into her safe room, and they shoot the door to open it because she locked the door tight. So they start to shoot at the door to break it. So she shoot back from the other side, killing the first terrorist that was in front of the door trying to break in. And that's what happened. The rest of the terrorists just drag him along the living room and threw him to the kitchen. And they came back and fight and shoot the door. Adi was empty with the empty magazine already, so she couldn't shoot anymore. And they just shoot her through the door until she died. But at that moment, I didn't know that, because I started to scream a name around the house, and I called Anani, and I told him the house is a mess, and I don't find Adi. he told me, don't worry, she's hiding somewhere. Just look carefully. And it gave me some few locations to look, like he built a special bed that you can hide in. And there was a location behind the spare fridge in the storeroom, but she was nowhere. She was nowhere. And the safe room looked terrible, look a mess. There was a sofa to sleep in case you have to stay longer, and it was upside down, and the closet of the clothes was on top of that, and the crib was thrown on top of that. And eventually later on, when the soldier break into the house after 3 days, they find the body under the bed. But when they come to tell us the story, they ask me if I try to open the door to the safe room, and I say yes, I was looking for Adi at the safe room. He say, you've been so lucky, because when you open the door, before the terrorists left, they attach a grenade to the door. And when I opened the door, I designated the grenade, but it was a failure run. It didn't work. And that grenade was supposed to explode the rest of the grenade that was around the body. They booby trap her body with lots of grenade. They count almost 50 grenades around the body. So they didn't want to walk in because they was afraid that if they saw one grenade, there might be more. So they went outside and they break the window from outside, and then they saw under the sofa part of the body, and they pull her very carefully through the window outside, and then a special unit that understand with the dynamite just took it apart one by one. But they say if you didn't open the door and we saw that grenade, we might be picking up the bed to look, and we could die. But listen, I'm telling you, Adi, before she left, I don't know, miracle and her advice keep not just my life, keep the rest of the soldiers' life, and I was waiting for a while. Anani's partner called me. Anani couldn't talk to me anymore after I understand that at that time that Adi been kidnapped with the kids, because we didn't see the kids. We didn't know about the body yet. And he told me, don't leave the house yet. We're going to come and pick you up and you will be with us. But they couldn't come. The road was full of terrorists. They couldn't come. But I was staying for a while. I didn't have a safe room anymore to stay. So I just was outside, and there was lots of bullets flying around. I decided, if I was safe until now, I better go away from this place, from all the shooting. I could get hit by one of the mistaken bullet that flying around, So I asked the soldier if I can leave, and they say, yes, the road is open. I went to the car. But because all of the fight between the terrorists and the soldiers, some of the bullets hit the car and broke the windows. So I had to drive the car without windows, and I drove it to the gate, and the gate was full of soldiers, and decide which way to attack the rest of the terrorists that was hiding there. Some of them was hiding in apartment, and some of them hiding between the trees that Anani grew there, the lemon trees and the mango trees. I asked them if it's really safe to go, and they say yes. When I drove a little bit and I started to see burning car, I was afraid that they don't know what they're talking about, really. And I called my friend in the other kibbutz. That's my friend, my soldier friend. And I told him it's all over, that Adi has been kidnapped and the kid's been kidnapped, and I'm going home. And he say, are you allowed to go? And I say, yes, the terrorist told me that it's all clear. And he say, don't, it's not clear. There is a group of terrorists on the highway there, block the road, and whoever stopped, because they blocking the road with an army car even, they shoot at you and they burn you in the car. And that's why I saw so many burning cars. And he gave me advice which way to go. It's a way they take us to our base when we are being a soldier, which is a little bit more east and south. And that's the way I took at the beginning until I hit another road that going north, and that's how I drove. But halfway, when I drove, Anani's partner called me, and he told me that a miracle happened. And I told him what happened, and said the kids been released by the terrorists with the neighbor, with Avital. And that's how we'll learn later on that the Al Jazeera was a reporter, was all the time was there with their murder, when they took the kids away from the shelter, the safe room, when they carried them to the neighbor, to Avital, when they tell her who are the kids, they told her to dress properly because they're going to Gaza. She was in a pajama, and they told her you should be a modest woman because that's how women are supposed to be in Gaza. So she dressed, they forced her to put 3 dresses, and that's how they walk all the way to Gaza. And she did, she had a shawl, and she did a sling for Eshel to carry him. And Negev was being carried by another terrorist, and they didn't, in the back, behind her. And they didn't let her turn her head around to see if he's still okay or something. They tell her if she's going to look around, they will kill her. And she was afraid to look at their faces even. But she told me that Negev was watching each one of them, each one of the terrorists, try to remember them. And he gave them name even. And just before, Jacqui said, before Rafiah, before the tunnel, when Negev already screaming, let me go, I want to go home, they just put him down, and the reporter was taking a picture. She didn't see him, she was afraid to look around, but he was taking a picture. And then how did he report? That they are very human, and they release mothers and baby and children. And that was what was on CNN when Jacqui said it's not the truth. And she returned like that, walking all the way from Rafiah to the kibbutz back. On the way, she remembered that they walk, because they walk along the trees that one of the kibbutz member, the one that been shot beside Avital, was planning few months before that, just that it will be a sign between the border. Because the tree was for her was like a star in the sky, that's the way I should walk. But every time she see a terrorist walking from the kibbutz, she lie down on the ground in case they will shoot her. But they got an information not to shoot her because they taken a picture, the movie about that. And in one point, Negev doesn't want to get up. He's wounded. He is bleeding. He's in pain. He's starving. So he doesn't want to get up. And he tell her that he want to eat something. So she tell him, what do you want to eat? He say, I would like to have an apple. She say, if you get up now and walk with me all the way, because we are released, we have to go back home, I will give you 2 apples. And that's convinced him. And he got up and he limped all the way to the kibbutz. And when they arrived there and met the soldier, he told them, she promised me 2 apples, I want them now. And they managed to give him 2 apples, and he ate it right away. He was so starving. And that's the way they've been safe. And I continue to drive to my other daughter that live in Modi'in, and I've been safe. And that's a story. That's a story of survival that can tell you what really happened there on October 7th. The truth, the real truth.
But we have to tell another story. Our second daughter, Ayala, the one who moved to Kisufim in July, they were also a family of 5, a 6.5-year-old and 4-year-old twins hiding in a safe room. Same situation, no power, so they couldn't even charge their phones, and that's why there was no communication with them. So none of us knew if they were even alive. And they were in their safe room also for hours on end with no communication because they didn't have phones. So they didn't even know, like everyone said, that they had a WhatsApp. But if you don't have your phone, then you don't have WhatsApp. And they heard the terrorists, but the terrorists did not enter their house. And we know now that the terrorists that entered Kibbutz Kisufim was a three-pronged attack, and they were headed. One of the places they were heading was the person who was in charge of the security squad of the kibbutz. They knew where he lived, and he lived a few houses away from Ayala. And so they weren't interested in Ayala's house. They were interested in his house. And he managed to shoot from his house out. And he killed a lot of terrorists. And that's why because we didn't know that for a long time. We just thought, oh, they skipped her house. Well, now we know why they skipped her house. They wanted him. And there were two other places that they broke into. So they also managed to kill, I think she said 18 people?
18, yeah.
18 people on Kisufim, and a lot of Thai workers, I think, also.
Yeah.
And they are a displaced family. It's almost 7 months, and they're still living in a hotel room at the Dead Sea. There are so many people from the Gaza Strip, as well as the northern border. Do not forget that there's a northern border that no one's saying there's a war going on, but there is, and all those people have been evacuated, and they're all living in hotels, and it's not normal. It's not normal. 7 months not to be able to live in your house, not to be able for your kids to do whatever they're used to sleep in their own bed, to be able to cook, to do laundry, to do whatever you do. School's not the same. They have makeshift schools, but it's not the same as real school. They're missing out, and there's no and they can't go back yet to Kisufim or to a lot of these um, kibbutzim, because they're still considered war zones. So you can't go back. So they're all waiting for their temporary housing to be built. But they're already waiting 7 months and it's still not ready. And they don't know when it will be. So it's not cool. It's so not cool. But 9 out of 10 members of our family survived that day.
I just want to mention something else. I want people, when they listen now what we told, that the attack was having a purpose to destroy the people, the Jewish people, to kill them on a purpose that wouldn't be continuing of the Jewish people in Israel. Because when they attacked, they not just shoot at the people, they burned them completely. They took heads with them. I don't want to tell terrible things, but people, if they look carefully, there are some movie there that they can look what the terrorists did at the Nova party or the other kibbutzim, burning the people in their apartment. Terrible thing. So, people doesn't believe. Those people in the kibbutz believe in peace, but they broke the dream. They broke the dream by killing them. So that's a story.
And your testimony is deeply personal, and it also highlights the betrayal, as you were mentioning, to their commitment to peace, because it was very strategic, and your survival highlights that. So I just wanted to say thank you both for sharing your deeply personal story and welcoming us into it. And in closing, I just want to ask how Anani and the boys are doing. I know they just came back from a trip to Thailand, I believe. So what has their life been 6 months on?
Well, for the first 5 months after October 7th, they lived in Jerusalem. They rented an apartment here. And then he made a decision not to live with the rest of the kibbutz members who are still at En Gedi. He wanted the boys to have a little more structure in their life and not necessarily be with all the people from Holit who are going through their own stuff, whatever. So they lived here, and Negev was in a nursery school, and Esha was had a caregiver with a couple of women who took care of a few babies, so he was with a caregiver, and they had a weekly therapy session, including the baby. They had that, and they had a pretty, for them, 8 to 4 was school, come home, play for a while, supper, bath, go to bed. So that's sort of back to the normal schedule, um, as much as it could be. But for Negev, life was so different because on the kibbutz it's so open and carefree, and you don't have to worry. There's very few streets or roads or cars, so he could just walk out the door barefoot, get on his tricycle, and pedal around the whole kibbutz. He probably knew most of the people. They certainly knew him. And all of a sudden he's stuck in an apartment where you can't go out by yourself. City noise is not the same as quiet kibbutz noise. Um, Loud sounds scared him. He always wanted to know if people in uniform were good guys or bad guys. Um, he asked Yaron when they moved into the apartment. They were playing, but he said to him with his cement truck, he said, please, put more cement on the walls. Imaginary game, of course, but to make the walls stronger, that kind of thing. But yesterday, when they came back from their vacation, um, Anani had found, before they left, a house to rent on a moshav. This was, he and Adi had this dream a couple of years ago already of trying to find a farm that they can, of their own, to buy. And that dream, sort of, they'd save up enough money, the price went up. It was always chasing the dream. But that is the dream. So he's halfway there. They're renting. He's renting. Um, but again, he'll have a big house right now, lots of land outside for the kids to run around, the kind of life that they wanted to give them. So the trial, instead of living 3 kilometers from the Gaza border, he will now live 13 kilometers from the Gaza border. So he's still in the same regional council, and it's supposed to be a little bit quieter there than Holit. We hope so. We haven't seen it, of course. They just moved there, so but they're okay. And I can't begin to tell you how wonderful it was to see the pictures and the videos of the boys the past few weeks. That they're just so happy and big smiles on their faces, and I'm sure it did them a world of good to get out of here for a little bit.
That's amazing. And it's very brave of him to continue with that dream that they had together. It's beautiful. And I just wanted to say thank you both so much. As I said, it's very vulnerable, and I know you're still grieving and processing. So thank you for opening and sharing with us.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.